Growing up, I used to love watching financial literacy shows, and at the time, Dave Ramsey and Susie Orman were probably the most popular. Honestly, I think those were the only financial literacy shows that I have ever seen, like on TV. And I was partial to Susie Orman, and particularly her Can I Afford It segment. I would be glued to the TV waiting for Susie Orman to say approved or denied, and I would try to figure out if she was going to approve or deny them. And I think that this is probably where some of my love for financial literacy came from. And I would be like listening while these adults are calling in, trying to justify these purchases that they know they cannot justify. Hello, beautiful people. It is me, Tasha K, with Gotta Say. If you are new to the channel, welcome. If you are returning, hey. This is the place for people who are trying to hit their first 1K, 10K, 100K, and beyond. So today, we are talking about Dave Ramsey's most damaging financial advice. And I want to start by saying, in the financial industry, we know that Dave Ramsey is an OG. I don't want to get that twisted. He absolutely helped to introduce an entire generation to this concept of how important financial literacy is. And people have taken on their finances because of his Financial Peace University. So no shade to Dave Ramsey. However, I absolutely think that our messages have to evolve. Finances are never one size fits all. And when I was broaching this subject to social media, trying to see if there would be any interest, it was pretty overwhelming. A lot of people have something to say about Dave Ramsey and his very rigid advice. One person on Twitter even shared a story with me about how she met someone who had a lot of bitterness and resentment because of Dave Ramsey's principles. It turns out that her husband passed away, and she felt like all they had done in their marriage was focus on paying down debt, and they never really got to enjoy their money, enjoy each other, because they were always focused on planning for the future. So I really do think that balance is key. And I want to be clear, we can never know the future. We definitely can't blame anybody for our decisions. But I do want to bring to the forefront that when it comes to financial literacy, you have to create a financial plan that is going to work for you. And I know that Dave Ramsey has a lot of opinions, and I think that sometimes he can be too inflexible in his baby steps approach. So I wanted to talk today about some of the things that I think Dave Ramsey can be super rigid about and the ways in which I think it can be damaging, all right? So let's just get right into it. Number one, Dave Ramsey says that you should never use credit cards and honestly never go into debt, period. I think that this is crazy for an American to say, but on the other hand, we get why he's saying it, right? A lot of people act like they cannot use debt in a responsible way. And that's really something that we have to learn. But the reality is we live in America, all right? We need leverage to buy so many regular items like a home, a car, an education, all right? So there are times when we're going to have to leverage debt. And to Dave Ramsey's credit, I do think that is something that you want to pause about. It's something that you really want to think about before you just jump into it because that's what everybody else is doing. Now, when it comes to credit cards, I really need you to do some soul searching because while I think that credit cards can be an incredible option to help you gain points or to help you gain bonus miles and maybe even gain the system a little bit and get some cash back, it is very important that you don't use this as free money and that you are paying off everything every single month so that you're not taking on debt that you can't afford, so that you're not digging yourself into a hole. So I do not agree with Dave Ramsey that you should never have debt. I don't even think it makes sense in the context of being an American citizen, but I do understand where he's coming from, and I will implore you to be responsible with your debt. All right, number 2, Dave Ramsey says that you should not support your kids or your grandkids. When you are getting up in age, you have already done your job with your children, and it is their job to do what they're supposed to do with their children. And I ain't gonna lie, I feel him a little bit. Like, I feel Dave Ramsey a little bit, because I have seen, I ain't gonna say no names, but I have seen how it is so easy to take advantage of your parents. It is so easy to take advantage of your grandparents. And then they are left with a lot of responsibility that they never asked for, whether it be financial or otherwise. And so I get where he's coming from, but I don't completely agree. I think that we have to start thinking about wealth in a very intergenerational way. So parents can help their children by allowing them to live at home. So when you graduate from college, instead of going out into the world and getting your first apartment and spending all that money on rent, come back home. Stay at home for a little bit, 2 years, 3 years, 5 years. Stack that money that you would be spending on rent and give your parents $400 or something like that they can be putting into their retirement account. All right. And I also think that parents should be thinking about how they can help their children and their grandchildren, because this is how you really begin to build wealth. And like, when you're thinking about having generational wealth, I think a lot of times we're only thinking about money. We're only thinking about helping people financially. But there's also a wealth of knowledge, a wealth of tools, a wealth of resources that we want to think about passing down as well. So there are more ways to help your family, your children, and your grandchildren than just financially. But I also think that you want to make sure that you're in a position to help them financially too, because you want to give them a leg up. You want your ceiling to be their floor. So just be smart and intentional and thinking in a very intergenerational way when you're doing it. Number 2, Dave Ramsey is a huge proponent of the debt snowball method. So if you don't know what the debt snowball method is, basically it's saying take some extra money that you have and throw it towards your smallest debt. Once you pay off that debt, take all the money that was being put towards that debt and snowball it into paying for your next lowest debt, and so on and so forth. So the idea is that you will tackle debt by smallest to largest. And the reason that people think that this is so incredibly beneficial is because it has some psychological benefits of completion, right? You get that sense of, I tackled that small debt, and now I'm going after the next one. And once I get that one done, now I'm going after the next one. The problem is, it's not the most financially beneficial. It does give you that little boost of endorphins to say that, yes, I accomplished something. But in my mind, I'm thinking, we are not kids, okay? We do not need to have this celebration when we know that it's not the most financially responsible way to behave. So it's not the best thing to do to go after your smallest debt. It would be more financially beneficial to go after the debt that is costing you the most. And if you do need to have some celebration about it to make you feel excited about your progress, there are many ways to do that. You can have a binder. So for example, in our Plan and Grow Rich budget binder, we have places where you can write down your debt and cross them off as you pay them. Or you can write down the total balance and then have goals for where you want that balance to be. So for example, if that balance is at $5,000, you can have a celebration for when it gets to $4,000. So maybe it's not completely gone, but you're still celebrating the progress, and that's what really matters. So I'm thinking, even though Dave Ramsey thinks that the snowball method is the best, I think that because we're adults, we should probably focus on the thing that is the most financially advantageous. And then finally, the one thing that Dave Ramsey says is, he's a very big proponent of paying off your debt. But this one is so crazy to me, paying off your home in full as quickly as possible. And really paying off all your debt, right? So he's a huge proponent of paying off all your debt before you are able to do anything else. This is the one that brings people a lot of bitterness. And he doesn't make any distinction between high interest rate debt and low interest rate debt. So in my mind, and the way that I advise my clients, you want to make sure that you are tackling that high interest rate debt as quickly as possible. But when it comes to your student loans, first of all, F them loans, okay? When it comes to your student loans, when it comes to your mortgage, when it comes to your car payments, you want to just pay off those things as they come. You want to pay the minimum balance and then be as financially responsible as possible with all the money that you have left over. So instead of putting all of the money that you have left over towards debt, I recommend putting some towards your emergency fund until you get at least $10,000, putting some towards your investments, making sure that you're maxing out your Roth IRA, that you're contributing to your 401k. When I think about debt, these are decisions that you've made in the past. And when you're paying off debt, you are taking care of responsibilities that you have from your past. But you also have to think about planning for your future, building assets for your future, creating security for Tasha in the present. And so you don't want to forget about that. Those are the 4 most damaging pieces of advice that I think come from Dave Ramsey. And I think that they have huge consequences when we think about the impact of never using a credit card, never being able to get rewards, never being able to get points, never having access to leverage. When we think about not supporting our children and our grandchildren, not giving them a leg up and what that could mean for their future. When we think about making decisions based on what feels good, like the debt snowball method, versus what is financially advantageous, like the debt avalanche method, that's what that method is called, there are exponential consequences to that. And then finally, when we think about taking all of our time and all of our energy to pay down debt, that we're never planning for our future, and then we spent 10 years paying down debt, and that's time that we could have been benefiting from compound interest. When we think about that, then you really can start to see the compounding effects that each of these things can have. So I hope that you guys enjoyed this video today. I hope that you took away, there's some sense to what Dave Ramsey is saying. I just think he goes too far, too fast sometimes. And I think that his beliefs can be a little bit too inflexible. So if you take the underlying principles that he's trying to get at, be smart with your money. Don't look to see what everybody else is doing, and you instead look to see what's actually going to work for you. Then I think that you could actually get something from his Financial Peace University and his Financial Baby Steps. And with that being said, if you enjoyed this video, I recommend that you head over and watch our 3 money mistakes video. I think it's one of the most underrated videos of the year because it really talks about the money mistakes that you should avoid in 2024. So we get into what the economy is looking like right now and how to make sure that you end up on top. So thank you guys so much. I want you to remember, you are not helpless, you are not hopeless, you are not powerless. In fact, you are powerful beyond measure. Have a wonderful day. Gotta stay.